Hey guys, it's Dr. Hayes, and I'm here to record this video lecture for Chapter 7 of They Say, I Say, so that you can kind of get some of the main ideas from Chapter 7 and get some instructions about how to do the exercise or the reading response for that chapter, just in case you need some extra help. So, I'm going to go through the ideas from the chapter, and then I will be available on Discord if you have questions or need help. Hopefully, you already saw my video about the SurveyMonkey screen capture, so you get a little bit more or directions and instructions for how to do the SurveyMonkey part of your field research assignment. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Chapter 7. And the title of Chapter 7 is So What, Who Cares? And it's all about connecting basically giving your essay a purpose. Essentially, what they're talking about is how to write the conclusion of your essay. This is the hardest part that a lot of students have when they're writing an essay, is how to finish this thing, how to bring it to a close, how to make it mean something at the end of the essay. So I say that in class. I've said it in class before, and I say it every semester. Your essay needs to have a so what, right? It needs to have a point or some kind of takeaway toward the end that lets the reader know why they've spent that time reading that and why you compiled all that information, and who cares about this? Why should I care about what you just had to say and what you worked on? So that's what this chapter is going over. So I've got the book here, and I'm going to try to point out a few things. I've also taken pictures of the actual exercise assignment at the end that you're supposed to do for your grade. Honestly, you don't really, if you don't have a book, several people have contacted me about, I don't have the book, I was using the library. Well, the library's still open, so if you wanted to go do that, you could. But I've put in I'm going to attach pictures of the exercise to the emails so that you can at least see what the assignment is. And both of the exercises for this week, exercise for Chapter 7 and for Chapter 8, are having you work with your informative essay that you got back with feedback, and make some observations about your informative essay. So I have, you can at least see that. You might not need the whole text of the chapter. Maybe just this video and seeing the description of the assignment will be enough, and you can finish it without having the book. So I'm gonna try to do that and help you guys. So this chapter rather of the book, talking about why does it matter? Why does your point matter? Why does your thesis matter? This Chapter 7, to me, it's a little bit straightforward. The first part, the who cares part, is kind of connecting back to what we've talked about at the beginning. So in earlier chapters, we talked about establishing a they. They say such and such, so now I'm saying this to respond to them, right? So that's what we do in the introduction, is we establish a they that we're in conversation with, that we're reacting with. So the who cares and the so what is similar to that, but it's something that you do at the end of the essay to establish, okay, so why did I tell you all this and why does it matter, kind of a thing. So it's important to finish that essay out strong. So the who cares part is establishing, usually probably the most common way, and your book explains this, is that you make it clear to your reader that this is not always how this was interpreted, or people didn't always feel this way, or this is a recent new way of thinking about this topic, or a lot of people are mistaken when they think about this topic. And so I'm here to tell you that there's a better new way, and that's why you should care, because it influences how you go about your business and go about your life with the new knowledge about this topic. So just like every other chapter and every other concept, this chapter gives you some templates to follow. I've got a little screen grab here for you. So the section about who cares, about how to establish the context for why should I as a reader care about this information you're giving me, the templates are there on page 94 and 95. I will read some of them. So it's example, this interpretation challenges the work of those critics who have long assumed that, fill in the blank. So he's saying this new research that I'm presenting to you challenges a long-held belief by scholars and critics from before. These findings challenge the work of earlier researchers who tended to assume that, fill in the blank. Recent studies like these shed new light on blank, which previous studies had not addressed. So this is all where you're establishing, hey, this is new stuff. You might think you knew about this topic, but your knowledge is probably outdated if you haven't looked into it for a while. So those are some of these templates. There's some other ones that are a little bit, like this one's very long. Researchers have long assumed that blank. For instance, this helps you put in a scholar, like an example of a scholar. For instance, one eminent scholar of cell biology, name, assumed in publication her seminal work on cell structures and functions that fat cells blank. As blank herself put it, quote, another leading scientist, blank, name, argued that for cells, quote, ultimately when it came to the nature of fat, the basic assumption was that, and that's when you're summing up what these scientists have said. So there's this whole paragraph. And then it says, but a new body of research shows that fat cells are far more complex and that blank. So they've written essentially a whole paragraph here where they're helping you establish who cares. They're helping you establish critical concepts. For researchers for a long time assumed fill in the blank thing was true. However, new research has come to light, that this is the case, right? And it helps you, it gives you a template for how to sort of word that. One of the things that I commented on a lot of your essays, the informative essays that I graded this weekend and got back to you, was that many of you did not very thoroughly introduce me to your sources. You'd have paragraph, information, parentheses with a name. Like, okay, who's that? Like, who's Schneider? I don't know who that is. You didn't tell me anything about them. Like, having a tagged in-text citation like that from time to time is perfectly fine once you've introduced that source in the essay. Once I know who Schneider is, then periodically if you insert another fact from Schneider, you can put that in-text citation and tag, oh, that's another thing Schneider said. Okay, I'm with you. But you can't just do that off the bat without me knowing who Schneider is and why should I care that they commented on this topic? Like, tell me who this person is. So that was a sort of across the board. But some of you, like half of you, didn't do it at all. Like, didn't introduce your sources at all. Just kind of tagged them or just gave me a works cited list with no in-text mentions at all. Like, half of people did that. And then half the class very thoroughly and wonderfully, according to blah, blah, blah Schneider, who wrote an article about such and such, did it the exact right way. So there was really almost nothing in between. It was either nothing, all or nothing. So if you did not introduce me to a source kind of like, for instance, one eminent scholar of cell biology name assumed in her article, which is, what is this? It's her seminal work on cell structure and functions. This is what she assumed, that paraphrase. So if you did not set up your sources like that, telling me who the people are, you need to do that in the next one. And there are some templates here on page 94, 95 that help you do that. The next section, that's the who cares section of the chapter. The next section is called So What? And this is the, really where you get into the meat and potatoes of the conclusion, right? Okay, so I've told you all this stuff. I've told you all this research. Sorry, I messed up. Have to start. I told you all this research, and I told you why you should care. Who is talking about this, that, things have changed. So now what are you going to do about it, right? So the so what is really ways for bringing your conclusion to a close, bringing your paper to a close. So the templates, I'll show you where those are. Pages 97. Okay, so the reason that the so what is necessary is that it's a good way for you to end your paper. Like, okay, now what are you going to do? Suggestions for future action, perhaps suggestions for how to change your perspective or why you should. How does this apply to the reader specifically? Like, okay, I'm giving you general ideas and general research, but how does this apply to your life as like a person in the world, right? So what? Who cares? That's what this whole chapter is about. So if you look on pages 97 and 98, that's where we've got the so what templates, pages 97 and 98. These give you some ideas for sort of inserting these final thoughts into your essay, right? Inserting these final thoughts into the conclusion of your essay, more specifically. So you have some examples. Although X, fill in the blank, may seem trivial, it is in fact crucial into terms of today's concern over blank. So that's where you're taking your idea and connecting it to a real world issue or concern. Like, I'm not just saying this actually applies to our lives in this way, fill in the blank. Those of you who are writing about nutrition information, this applies. Those of you who are writing about the state of higher education, this applies. Those of you who are writing about like gender and issue, all of the things y'all are writing about, the conclusion is a really good place to connect these sort of abstract research topics to sort of a real world situation, a real world issue. Like telling me, so what? Why should I care? Let's see. What's another one? Ultimately, what is at stake here is. That's very clear and it's straightforward. These findings have important implications for the broader domain of. So this is one where you can zoom out. Maybe you're saying, I've been very specific. I'm talking about this one specific instance of this one idea, this one maybe law or bill or rule or issue in this one location. And so maybe your whole essay has been very specific, this one specific issue. But then in the conclusion, the so what, why should I care about so-and-so in Oklahoma law? Your conclusion using this template can be like, okay, but if you zoom out, it has implications that are important on a broader scale. And you could put it into a larger context instead of putting it into a more specific context. Here's one. If we are right about blank, your topic, then major consequences follow for blank. These conclusions / this discovery, like whatever you've just presented, this discovery will have significant applications in blank as well as in blank. So spell it out for me. Spell it out for the reader. Okay, so you found all these things, you compiled all this research, all these researchers have been doing all these studies. What does that mean? What's the significance? What am I looking at here? Is this bad? Is this good? Is this change gonna happen right away? Like, what are we looking at? I need you to, spell it out for me, right? You might seem dumb, like you're being very obvious, but you're not. You need to spell it out for your reader. And then there's one more that you can they give you one more that sort of combines the so what and the who cares, so what and who cares. Although X may seem of concern to only a small group of fill in the blank, whatever people it is, it should in fact concern anyone who cares about blank. So you're combining the who cares with the so what idea at the end there. Okay, so those were the two main ideas discussed in this chapter. I would say use those templates, like use the templates I showed you. Pretty much, a lot of you had really good conclusions. Some of you had no conclusion. You just made your points and then the paper was over. That's pretty common, actually, for early writers. They don't really know how to end, so they just don't. Right? That's pretty standard. That's not that unusual, so don't feel bad if you did that. But you do need to have an intentional final paragraph. Not just the last paragraph that you happen to write when you got to the word count or the page length minimum, but like an actual intentional final paragraph that accomplishes a certain things. That should be a review from 101. Like, what does the conclusion do, right? Sometimes it's appropriate to summarize your points. Sometimes it's appropriate to lay on some sort of emotional, lay it on thick, lay on the butter, so to speak, some emotional appeals to your reader. Sometimes it's appropriate to answer this "so what" question. Actually, always it's appropriate to answer this "so what" question to tell them, okay, ultimately, as a result of reading through my research and all the work I've done, what's expected of you now as a reader? Why should you care about this? What should you do going forward? How should your life change? How should your mindset change? So the conclusion needs to be an intentional paragraph that brings the essay in for a landing and sort of accomplishes these certain jobs, the ones I just mentioned, these goals. And so this chapter sort of helps you with some strategies on how to do that. And so use the templates that I put on the page numbers there, and that will help you. Okay, I'm going to end this video for now, and then the next video I'll make is about chapter 8. And we can talk a little bit more about the concepts from chapter 8 in that video. Until then, I will see you guys later.